Hello, everybody, and welcome to At the Gardens. I'm Garrett Wilhelm, founder of Creative Gardens, Ashburn Village, and CEO of Creative Gardens Early Education in Virginia. We're a company that owns schools, personalized education schools in the area. And this show is all about kids' education, kids' products, families, parenting, the whole cabangle. I don't know the best word to describe that, but again, we thank you for your attention in watching our other shows. Today, we have a really special guest and very relevant guest to what's going on. Her name is Elizabeth Adams. She is the co-founder of a company called Trustle. Trustle, from my understanding, sources learning pods in currently the Alexandria area and beyond. I know that there's another area that we'll talk about as well and why those two areas are in the mix. We're really excited to talk with Elizabeth. So without further ado, I'm going to pull her on. Everybody, welcome Elizabeth Adams.
Hello.
Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super stoked to have you on. And a little context into why Elizabeth's on the show. I put it out to the Facebook world and saying I would love to have people jump on the show to talk about what's going on right now, COVID, parenting, schooling. And so Elizabeth was mentioned to me by a good friend of mine, Vicky Mutarelli, whose kids I taught way back in the day at Sunset Hills Montessori School in Reston. And so a little context for you, Elizabeth. So welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Yeah, Vicky's, and now her kids watch my kids.
Get
my kids.
out. Yeah. It's a full circle, huh?
It's a full circle.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So for those that are watching, Elizabeth, could you give us a bit of an origin story on who you are and how you got to starting Trustle?
Sure. So I am a clinical child psychologist by training. And I've been in the Northern Virginia area for quite some time, and over the last 15 years have really worked in mostly traditional settings doing therapy. I worked at Children's National. I was at Kennedy Krieger for a little bit doing some training. And after, when I had my daughter, I have a specialization of working with kids with hearing loss. And after I had my daughter, who's now 6, I started working at an independent school in Washington, D.C. that's an inclusion school. And I was working there and doing the testing and therapy for the larger community. But what was really interesting moving into a school setting where we sort of ran our clinic, but it was housed within a school, was I was there to help the kids in the community that were getting therapy. But part of my job was also supporting all the parents at the school. And it was really fascinating to me. The parents would come and say, like, I know this isn't, necessarily something I would talk to a child psychologist about, but do you have any tips on sleep? Can you talk to me about picky eating? Can we talk about behavior? And it was sort of these everyday challenges of parenting. And that really got kicked up when I had my daughter. My friends were going through this, and they were saying, like, there just isn't a good place to go to get some information about these everyday things, but it's way too heavy-handed to maybe make an appointment for a psychologist. So it got me thinking about, where do parents turn to reliable sources as they're navigating some of these typical parenting things? And so I started a parent coaching company and was doing that for a little bit. And then through very good fortune, through a mutual friend, I met our CEO, Tom Sayre. And Tom lives in San Francisco. We were introduced and started talking about this issue, and we were very interested in making somebody like myself, somebody who has experience with young children, accessible in a really easy way to parents. So we wanted to build an app where parents could connect with a parenting expert and talk, text, or video call and get advice about everything from picky eating to sleep with infants to lactation consulting, just sort of the everyday parenting stuff. So,
wow,
yeah.
That sounds really, really amazing. And of course, I think as you were kind of talking, I think parents parents these days now go to Facebook groups
Yeah.
and then get completely ridiculous information that's normally polarized in a lot of ways and has some kind of political background to it, unfortunately. So I think what you're doing and what the inception of this company was really important, because these are, certified people. These are people that you can go to that are trusted to actually give factual information. So that's super interesting. And how has the experience been so far with Trustle and your user base, and kind of what are you learning from your user base?
It's been amazing and such an incredible learning experience. I think we learned that, to your point, a lot of parents are seeking this type of information through Google, and then it's not tailored to their specific family, or they're going to Facebook groups and they're getting really conflicting information. And one of the things that's so fascinating is there's no shortage of information. Like, it's
Right.
not an information shortage problem. It's figuring out how to contextualize that information for the family. And what I
That's
do
right.
with my child isn't necessarily what somebody else is going to do with their child, and that's okay, because every family's different. But we can use the evidence base that we have and really be thoughtful about, there's a couple options when it comes to sleep. Here's what the science tells us. Let me help you choose the right thing for you, and
Awesome.
navigate how to do that. And parents are really appreciative of that. But the landscape definitely started to change with COVID in terms of our company and what supporting parents meant.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that there has been a shift in, and obviously, I think to kind of go back a little bit, is that's a lot of the role that even educators play right now, and even early childhood educators. You find in early childhood there's a lot more questions, especially for first time parents, about their kiddos and what's best and things like that. So we find, especially here at Creative Gardens, that a lot of what we're trying to do is kind of exactly what you're doing on a larger scale, which is how can we give these more pointed suggestions to families. And ultimately, I think you want, and families really want, a semblance of control in that situation. So being given options to which to choose from is far better than saying, this is how you do it. This is the only way to do it, right? So let's talk a little bit about COVID and your experience with that and how you guys pivoted as a company.
Okay. So, I think COVID is such a challenging time for everybody, but it's put some really unique strains on parents and parenting. And when it was really interesting kind of going through this myself and talking to parents who were just completely overwhelmed with trying to balance distance learning, trying to figure out how to talk to their children about what was going on, a total shift in their own work life balance and support networks. It was just a huge shift for parents, and it was incredibly challenging. And I did a ton of workshops when COVID first started for employers, where I was talking to their employees about, how to try to balance working from home while doing distance learning with your kids, and how to manage some of the anxiety and how to help your children through this. And what was interesting was that our premise at Trustle was kind of helping parents think through these everyday parenting challenges. And COVID came along, and it was like, I don't care about picky eating right now.
Exactly.
I'm trying to get my problems.
For sure.
And it was kind of the same with everything we usually dealt with sleep, with things like that. They were just like, I don't care. Like, we're
iPads, phones, yeah.
all out the window. And parents were kind of saying to us, like, this is not my moment. And I was saying to parents, this is not the moment where you have to, like, excel in your parenting. Like, we're just trying to figure out.
You don't have to be a hero. You have to survive, really.
You have to survive.
Yeah.
And we kind of took a break. Like, I was like, okay, I need to just talk to parents right now. So I spent 2 weeks And I just got on the phone with as many parents as I could. And this was maybe, gosh, it was like the 2 weeks before Mother's Day, actually.
Got it.
And I spent I talked to probably 70 parents. And I talked to moms who had lost their jobs and were now stay-at-home moms. And I talked to mothers who were pregnant. I talked to, parents who had 3 kids that were trying to do distance learning, parents of kids with learning disabilities, parents who had COVID themselves.
Yeah.
And I was saying, like, what do you need right now? Like, what is it that's going to help you through this moment as a parent? And I can't tell, like, so many of these parents cried and they said, I don't know. I need somebody to help me. I need somebody to, I need a vaccine. I need my kids to go back to school. I need
Right.
them to be a teacher. Like, what it feels like I need is insurmountable. What I actually need is childcare and somebody educating my child. And so, when gosh, it was about 2 weeks before, in June, it was about 2 weeks before I gave birth, and I was talking to some of my friends on text, and everybody was, are schools going to open? Are they not going to open? And I ended up texting my 2 co-founders, and I'm like, we should set up something, that the way people find nanny shares, they're going to be looking for teachers, because I did distance learning in the spring with my daughter, and I'm very lucky to be equipped in some ways. And it was really hard to do this in working.
Yeah.
And, parents are going to be looking for this kind of support. And we started, next thing you knew, pandemic pods was what everybody was talking about. And, but we really wanted to think about it from an equity and diversity lens.
Understood.
We got really concerned about some of those pieces as we were exploring this as an option.
Yeah, I think it's as you talk, like our jobs are very similar in the sense of, I am very, and my business in general is very customer obsessed. And so I did the same thing, right? The first thing that I wanted to do, we put together this program called the GAP program that assists LCPS, Loudoun County Public School learners here in an in-school environment, but it's at a micro level. So we're able to do that because we have groups of 10, right? And I can go through and sanitize my school every day. I think the challenges for the public school is they have to do that at scale, and that's really difficult. Yeah. But, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to, I've had those same experiences and conversations with families and saying, like, what's going on in your life? I need to understand that, because as you know, as a business owner and a founder, is like you have to, there's this mix of, what you want to build coupled with what the market wants, right? And if you can successfully give the market what it wants, then that's a really good business decision. And if you can do that well, right? And I think we're doing the same thing in the sense of, I don't like to say COVID survivor because of the amount, but I went through COVID. My fiance went through COVID. My 2-year-old daughter, we did not get it at our school, thankfully. But it's very interesting because not only do I hear families like you're talking about saying like I'm not sure what I need right now other than help and support. Like I can relate to that, right? It's for the same reason that I know a lot about kids. But my experience in spring, when the kids went through distance learning, was not good. It to try and balance building business as you're doing and also be a parent is extremely difficult. And so I think the work you guys are doing is really awesome. Now, a question I have for you is did you have the technology back end to kind of support the system that you were talking about so that integration was somewhat seamless, or was there some engineering that needed to be done?
Yeah, well, luckily, when we decided to tackle this problem, we knew that it was going to be big and huge, and we were kind of going to be devoting our lives to it.
For sure.
So luckily, I took my 2-week-old and went to my mom's house, and she helped me out.
Great.
And our chief technical officer, Cataline Voss, who's also in California, basically, and we have a couple engineers that work for us, and they were able to both build some new infrastructure and repurpose what we had. So because, we really have an integrated chat platform, one of the things that we can utilize that for when we set up our learning pods is we're using community educators in the learning pods rather than teachers, because it drives down, it helps to control the cost, and
Absolutely.
we want to keep the teachers in the schools.
That's right.
So these are people who are camp counselors or have experience with children, but we also recognize that they might need support and like a seamless way to communicate with an educator.
For sure.
We have sort of these pod principals and these lead teachers that the community educators can message with to get support, because we really want to support the people that we're putting in these pods, and also create a platform for the parents to communicate with their pod leader. So we had the infrastructure set up for that. The infrastructure that was not there is basically helping to create a matching algorithm so that when people do sign up for a pod, we ask questions around socioeconomic level, race, but also COVID exposure, COVID tolerance, who are you okay or being around, what do you need for your family? Where do you live? What's the age of your child? And then basically using technology to help create those matches in an efficient way, because parents are kind of sitting on Facebook saying like, I have a second grader in the school, and it's really hard for people to make these connections.
For sure.
So we're kind of potting people up, but also making them diverse while we're doing that.
That's amazing. And I would imagine culturally and socioeconomically diverse, correct? Like, that's so cool. So, I think one, the need is there. And the reason why I was really interested in having you on is like, I was kind of, again, my whole background is very similar to you. Yours is more therapy, mine is more education, but education in Silicon Valley. So understanding those two worlds is a really, I think, powerful skill set. But, I put out a program as soon as they announced that they were going to do some semblance of distance learning. I was like, just like you, pivoted first to market, saying we're going to run this GAP program. And within, I would say, a month, we were completely full of 40. Well, initially, we only had 10 spots. And then I said, okay, well, we filled 10 in like a day. Like, we have to do 20. And I have plenty of space here because we just opened. So 10,000 square feet here, but there is an early education side of things. And then there were 20. And then we were like, can we do 10 more? And then there were 30. And then can we do 10 more? And then there were 40. So the need is 100% there for families, because I think, and I've talked a lot about this on the show with other people, is, we talk a lot about what we're doing for our kids, but the unspoken thing at a lot of these school board meetings is the fact that the public school system serves in two ways. One, they provide education, and two, they provide childcare.
Absolutely.
And we don't have that conversation. It's just assumed, one, that every business is going to be okay with you being at home, which, as we know, is not assumable. There's service-based industries that have to be in the building, myself included. And then two, to expect that large corporations are going to, you would hope that they would adapt to this type of world. But at the end of the day, money is money, and you got to make it. And so you have a lot of families that are just kind of left to their own devices. And so, in thinking about that, so what would the process be for someone that was interested in Trustle? What would that look like, the UX kind of side of things?
Yeah. So they can go to our website, and we have what we think is which is trustle.com.
Got it. I'll put it up on the screen.
It's really, parents can go and they can go through the onboarding flow of asking. It just asks questions about your family. Again, like how old, it's really user friendly. And it asks about your COVID tolerance, your COVID risk, what you can afford, because one of the things that was really important to us was making it affordable. So we're basically reinvesting the profits back into the model, 80% of the profits back into the model, which we believe can support anybody that needs to come. So we can offer partial to full financial aid.
Whoa.
If we have the right balance of
For sure.
But it really depends, like the success of this matching process and having diverse pods and being able to match kids on age and being able to match people on COVID risk and being able to offer financial aid. It becomes necessary to have the critical mass to be able to do that. So the more people we have register into the system, the more likelihood there's going to be a pot of 5 that matches. So our task right now, we're starting to get some groups together and really doing it by hand, but the larger the pool is, the better this is going to work, because you're going to be more likely to be matched up with somebody that's close to you, that matches the criteria that we need to make these pods successful. So we're trying to get the word out about them right now, but when we have groups of 5 together, we're talking to the families now at this point in a very individual way. But the families just go through and answer questions, and then we kind of wait for there to be a match among 5 families. Then we will reach out and say, here is the group that you matched with. And the families have an opportunity to meet one another, speak to one another, and agree that they want to do this together. The question also asks in the onboarding flow, the parents are asked about space. And there's minimum requirements to whether you can host a pod. We offer a discount if the parent is going to be a host family. And then they talk to each other, they agree. And then at that point, we present families with community educators that we've sourced, saying here's who we think would be a great match for you based on the age of the kids in this pod. And we also take care of all the contracts are done for the families. We provide them with the legal framework, some liability, all of these things that people are oh my gosh, I'm
you never think about
school out of my house.
That's
what
right.
Is the legal implication of this? What is
That's
liability? Right. How do I write a contract for a pod leader? Part of what we're doing is helping parents to handle the logistics of that so that they can, as a group, then employ the community educator. Then our job is to help support the community educator in making it successful by offering them access to our early childhood educators that we have on staff, who are master's level teachers, and they can support the pod coach. They can sort of support the community educators that are leading the pod and helping them think through, behavior management, managing these schedules,
classroom management,
that are kind of brand new.
Yeah.
And we're there to support the families to make it successful.
How amazing. That is one that you've been able to kind of
Garrett,
reverse
I
it.
can't hear you for some reason.
Did you get me? Hello? You got me? Let's try this again. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
1 second. How about now? No? Did you mute something? Let's make sure I'm coming through. How about now? No? Okay. Can you hear me, though? No?
I can't hear you.
Oh, I can hear you. That must be me. Hold on 1 second, okay?
Is it?
How about now? No? Weird. What the? There we go. No, maybe so.
I don't know.
Hold on 1 second. We apologize, friends. Check 1. Can you hear me? Let's see.
Do you want me to log out and come back in? I'm going to try to do that. Okay, I see you nodding your head. Yeah, I'm going to do that. With dealing with all the tech side. I don't know why. I could hear you beautifully before. Okay. No. Now I can hear you.
You can hear me?
I can tell I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me flip the camera around.
Okay.
Oops.
Oh, no, now I can again. Whatever was I could hear you before.
Nothing?
No, now I can hear you.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Yay. All right, hold on. Let me do this.
Okay.
All right, so anyway, we were saying, do you remember where we left off?
We were just saying that then the community educators would get support in implementing.
Very cool.
So right now we're set up because we are not utilizing our own curriculum. So the community educator's role is to support pods of kids in implementing their public school curriculum.
Yeah.
So it's kids in K through 5 enrolled in public school in Fairfax County, Prince William County, and Redwood City, California. And the community educators work with those kids to implement the program provided by the public school.
Yeah, we're doing it's pretty much the same product we're doing, except I think you're leveraging it on a larger scale. I've hired certified educators here. They're going to be, and certified means that they're either certified with the county, or they have a degree in progressive education in some way, Montessori, Reggio Emilia, anything like that. I'm a big education dork. So, but it sounds to me like, your end goal is that these kiddos get a meaningful education this year. And it hopefully helps to bridge a gap that we all kind of feel, which is, these kiddos are not around other kids. And I think the most powerful learning is done from peer to peer during this time. So that being said, what are some of because my next question to you, which you answered, was like, how are you doing curriculum? But I think, do you think that this will, and I'm hopeful that it will, inspire a different way of learning moving forward? I mean, I am of the a little context, I look at the public school system as very outdated. I look at it as something that was crafted for factory work in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and very little has changed other than what we tell parents in general. Do you think that this could be a way in which education changes?
Yeah, I should. It's funny. I should have you. You should talk to Tom, our CEO. For him, education has always been kind of his passion, and he has a varied background. But in addition, when he went to business school at Stanford, he also got a master's degree in education, and he was a teacher for a little bit, and then he was a lead at Google for Education for many years before we started Trustle. And he's very interested in learner-centered education, and is on the board at Education Reimagined, and is
Oh, snap. Okay. We play with the same people. So my first school partnered with a company called Alt School out in San Francisco with Max Ventilla, former director of personalization for Google, things like that.
Yep.
So we play in the same field. All right, keep going. So talk to me a little. He was
so you'll have to talk to him next. But he actually, Trustle was always in particularly in Tom's mind. Trustle was a way to get parents to start shifting the way they think about educating their children. Because to exactly what you were saying before, like a lot of the things that I said about parenting, where it's individualized, it's about your family. You have to take your child into context.
Thank
really
you.
Understand them. He was like, this is how I feel about education. And if we can get parents to start thinking about their kids when they're really little in this way, they will be more open to thinking about education in this way. And so for him, a long-term goal of Trustle was always education and thinking about how we do that. And when COVID happened and we saw this shift, he was incredibly energized and excited, because he was like, this is going to be the most seismic shift in education. That's forcing it. It's forcing this shift. And he was incredibly excited about the opportunity and it was one of the reasons that we decided to take this pivot, in addition to it being what parents needed in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
For him, it was it was always part of the vision for Trustle, and he was really excited about this opportunity to, what if this works really well for some kids that they need a smaller scale environment? What if we can even open the door a little bit to find those pockets during the day where the public school curriculum is not happening, and how can we enrich that curriculum and think about these 5 children that are in this learning pod and help them have a different experience, and maybe one that is actually really works for them in a way that things weren't working before. And what does that mean?
Yeah, and I think, I have to talk to this guy because we're very, very much aligned. I think in general, kids are very capable, especially middle school and up, of crafting their own schedule around the competencies that they need to learn. But I think where we make the biggest mistakes in education is not valuing exactly like Tom says, which is you're not factoring in, and what you guys do as a company, the personal lives, the connectivity of these kiddos to their home life, and how that potentially could affect their education. And I think too, we have kids kind of perform in this regurgitation, memorization and regurgitation model in education, and then we factor their success in one way. And I think overall, all we're doing is pigeonholing these very unique learners. Like science proves that. Science proves that we all learn differently. Like it's not an assumption anymore. So why are we not, when you craft a education that speaks to a learning style and you're able to quantify success in the way that speaks to their styles the most, I think ultimately you can have a blended or virtual learning or home learning environment for older kiddos that's a little bit more contextual to the actual world that we're living in, right? Like I think we educate our kids again to kind of fall in line, but as you and I know, like no one changed the world falling in line, and I think that's going to be exponentially more needed in a world where we don't really know what the future looks like. I think, in the 80s when I was growing up, it's like you think, like I always joke with the kids at school here, like we thought these were Star Trek transponders. Like I watched Star Trek and I was like, there's no way that I'll be able to look at somebody face to face by holding something in my hand and going anywhere with it. And sure enough, we have that. And I think people like you and companies like Trustle are, we cannot rely on the institutional government side of things because by definition, that institution is very difficult to change. I think companies like yours and mine, in the sense of we can affect small change now, but we can also stand as an example for what great education looks like. And I don't think anything's going to change until we start seeing some results from these kiddos that are actually in these progressive learning environments. So it's definitely a conversation to have and to think about is, well, let's say you have a learning pod. Let's say you source 5 kids. Let's say you source 5 families. By osmosis, those families are going to get to know each other. Those families are going to probably end up liking each other because you're helping to source like-minded families that are kind of comfortable in the same things. And I think you're going to have a lot of people that don't want to change when they, like they're going to be in these pods and then school's going to go back and they're going to be like, well, let's keep these pods. You know what I mean? So I'm glad to hear that you guys are thinking about that. Do you plan on this being a long-term program?
I mean, we believe that there is an opportunity to continue to support kids and their education. And exactly what that looks like, I don't think we know at this moment. But it's such a radical shift that we think there's going to be lots of room to utilize this opportunity to be thoughtful and to partner in parents, like continue to listen to parents as they go through this first experience and say, like, how can we carry this forward with you in a way that's going to be meaningful and impactful beyond COVID. But I think that that's going to be shown to us through talking to parents and seeing kind of how things unfold.
Yeah, appropriate feedback loops and trying to make sure that, I mean, we're doing the same thing here. It's so funny, like how similar what we're doing is, trying to make sure that we're front facing, that we don't have it all figured out, that this is something that's totally, and you hear unprecedented a lot, but it's true. It's totally unprecedented. We have, there's no playbook. But I think ultimately in life, when you have pain and you have struggle, I believe as an optimistic person that, what comes out of that is growth, right? So you have the ability to kind of see the holes in things like the education system. And now parents, like a massive amount of parents are seeing these holes in our education system to say, these are the people that we trust to deliver a great education. And in a lot of cases, in most cases, despite understanding that there is no playbook, it's been up and down and left and right, and things change, almost every day. Most recently, Loudoun County, they were allowing their gifted children to come in for things like home ec and shop, things that are very hands-on, but then not allowing special ed children to do the same thing when the need, in my mind, I have a child on the spectrum at home, is higher, right? And so then when you have parents erupt, I mean, I think this is kind of the way in which things are happening, which is you have parents erupt in social media and call out and tag the system. And then all of a sudden that's changed with no accountability for those types of decisions, which potentially could really leave kids out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've had parents reach out to us and saying, can you support special needs kids? And we're saying, we're going to take it on a case by case basis and do the best we can. I mean, I've talked to community educators that have a background in, working as an ABA therapist.
Awesome.
So potentially that could be a great fit, but it's kind of, without the cooperation of the school systems at large, like what we're trying to do in being able to serve literally every child that would need something like this, whether or not, if they can't afford something like this, whether or not there's special accommodations that need to be made. It is just an unbelievable, overwhelming task. And we're sort of saying, like, we're going to do the best we can to try to help parents. And we're going to take it on a case-by-case basis. And we're going to see if we can find a pod that would meet the needs of your child. But it's incredibly difficult without the resources of, the parents are coming to us with their IEPs saying, like, could you do this? And it's like, some of these things, no, we can't. But this is a legal document that, like, the school is legally obliged to impart.
That's right.
And, are they offering a resource to do this? Like, how can we try to work with them? And, things are changing all the time, but it's incredibly challenging.
Well, what I think is interesting is Fairfax County as well, too, said, they're against, quote unquote, pods because of equitable learning, right? They're kind of saying, if you can't, if we can't provide that type of service to every child, then, we want your kids. They're basically saying, like, you have no childcare, you have no support, but here, when you find support in childcare, don't do that because there's kids that can't do it, and we won't have, like, it's such a catch-22. And if you are a parent at home, I don't care if you're, in poverty or rich or whatever, the need is absolutely there. And especially for families that are in poverty and have special needs children that rely on the public school system. And you said it best. I think super smart in saying, like if families are coming to you, right, it means that the county is not providing appropriate support. That's plain and simple. It's the same reason I look at parents coming to me, like, they're coming to me, they're desperate, they're interested, and we want to, like you, work with the system closely, but have been kind of, we've called every single elementary school of kiddos that we've had to connect and say, hey, this is what we're doing, and we'd love to work with you and your educators and get somewhat aligned there with zippy response. So it's super interesting right now, because that's why I kind of see a shift is you see the private sector kind of jumping up and saying, we're here to help, and we can kind of affect quick change. We can iterate quickly, right?
Because there's not the bureaucracy to, like, wade through, but at the same time, to do it in without the cooperation. And we want to be supportive of the public system. We don't, we're saying stay in your public schools. We're not going to hire away your teachers.
That's right.
And in fact, we have a model that can support families that can't pay. Like, help us bring this to your families. But it's, the wheels of change move really, really slow in the systems that big. And I think it's parents are finding it, they can't wait, and school's going to start, and parents need solutions.
And I think it's real, right? That kids are struggling. I think that there is an undertoned anxiety that exists within every child right now. And as you know, children that can't understand that, it can have a dramatic effect when you don't understand what's going on, why you have that buzzy feeling in your neck when anxiety comes up, and don't really have the tools to support that, mindfulness, things like that. It is urgent. And I think it's super important that we, continue to do the things that we're doing. I just think hopefully down the road, as we kind of unravel and learn from this experience, that the connection between what we do and what the public schools can do can live in almost a symbiosis of working together in order, because we're all kind of getting to the same mission, right? It is to serve each child with an equal education that's forward progressing. That's at least for me for me what speaks to their learning style and really allows for a successful education that fosters a lifelong learning. I think that's so important. But
absolutely.
That being said, we got to wrap up the conversation because I could talk to you forever and ever and ever. It seems like, again, we play in the same world. And the interesting part for me is like, I've been doing this for now, in Silicon Valley and working in progressive education for almost 15 years. And like a lot of the things that we were talking about 10 years ago are starting to really come into fruition as a public knowledge. Which is good. I see, for the same reason your founder sees this, or your CEO, I'm sorry, sees this unique opportunity. I see the same opportunity. Yes, it's super challenging that these kids are going through this, that parents are going through this, and that we all are going through this as a world. But on the end, hopefully it elevates our consciousness, not in just the sense of our own selves, but in the sense of how important education is to changing the world. I think every single bit of issue that we have in our country right now, you can kind of go back to education, racism, ignorance, bigotry. All of these things require really meaningful, authentic learning at a young age. And I think what you're doing is amazing. Now, Elizabeth, where can we find not only you on social media, but Trustle on social media, and how can we find that?
Yeah, you can find Trustle on Instagram. It's Trustle and then _ at the end. And you can find us on Facebook under Trustle.
Awesome. And then, of course, your website, www.trussle.com. Guys, what Elizabeth is doing out here is transformative. And again, keep your head up, keep fighting the fight, because obviously I know the challenges. I speak to them very personally of what you're trying to do. If you are looking for something for your kiddo, a learning pod for your kiddo, support as a family, definitely check out Trussle.com and what Elizabeth Adams is doing. Elizabeth, thank you so much for jumping on with me today. We really look forward to just providing value. Hopefully somebody can get value from this experience and this conversation. And I hope to continue the conversation with you, because I have a lot of connections off camera that I'd love to shoot your way that I think would be really helpful. So thank you so
much for having me.
Of course. I'm going to jump her off real quick. Hold on. My friends, thank you so much for joining us here at the Gardens. We really appreciate it. Remember, if you've missed an episode, you can find us on YouTube at Creative Gardens VA. We have all of our episodes on there. You can also find them on the blog on our website, www.creativegardensva.com. At the Gardens is on the top. Click on it. You can find all the different episodes there. Share these episodes with your friends. Comment, like, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Make sure that people get the word out. Loudoun County, Northern Virginia, we care about education, and I want to put that out to the world. So thank you so much. And as always, from Creative Gardens, keep your head up, keep moving forward. Bye.